All right, welcome to another episode of the Contacts to Contracts podcast. I am Bryan Lovell here with my co-host, Mr. John Jones, and we have a special guest today, Shawn Miller. And I'll introduce Shawn here in just a minute, but I want to introduce this series of podcasts that we're going to do over the next couple of weeks, and we're just going to call it our Top Producers Podcast. We are going to interview some of the top mortgage loan officers across the country and give you some tips and tricks and talk about some of the ways that they've built their business to the level that they have. I happen to know Shawn. Shawn, I believe, like, how long have we known each other, man? About 12 years now?
Probably, I think it's like 08.
Yeah, I remember you when you didn't close very many loans.
Yeah.
Of course, neither did I.
I think Bryan was in the same situation.
I was going to say.
I don't think in 08 a lot of us closed a lot of loans, right? If we remember back then.
Yeah, not as many. I remember Brian Forrester, I had asked him how much he was closing one of those years. He's like, the usual 10. The usual 10.
Oh, 10 a month?
Yeah. And that burned me up because I wasn't closing 10 a month. He's like, the usual 10. I'm like,
steady Eddie.
Yeah. It's interesting. But yeah, we've known each other for about 12 years, and I would consider you actually one of my dear friends, not just a colleague, but I appreciate you taking some time to spend with us.
Sure.
And talk a little bit about your business. So, Johnny, you want to kick us off, man?
Yeah, I'm curious. Like, so how many? 2008. But prior to that, when did you actually start in the mortgage business? And not only start, why?
So I started out in the business in 2003. Prior to that, I was doing new home sales.
Okay.
And you had to be in the model home every Saturday, Sunday. And back then, in 01, 02, 03, in new home sales, the sales consultant, we could go over tax savings, payments, cash to close, credit reports. It was a lot different back then.
You sure?
Because we were on the sales side of things. And I was a mathematics major in college, so I always enjoyed the number side. I just didn't exactly love sitting in a model home every Saturday and Sunday. 6 days a week and Saturday, Sunday.
Sure.
And I'd always have loan originators coming into my office, promising me the world, but their voicemail box would be always full. They'd miss closing dates. These were like the subprime lenders that we would send out to, that the new home finance company couldn't do. So I was like, shoot, I'm going to go to that side of the business, do the little things right, dot the I's, cross the T's. And I already had real estate relationships from being inside the new home sales model. So that's kind of how it got me started and closing deals right away.
Okay. Yeah. What got you into Florida?
Okay. So in 2003, I started originating up in Ohio. The company I was working for up there, they were looking to open office down here in Florida. So ended up moving down here in 06.
Man, you just took the leap. Boom, I'm moving from Ohio to Florida.
Yeah, well, and it was hard to get started with real estate business down here. It's hard to get started when you're starting out in a new area, so as it is. But I didn't have a lot of relationships.
No sphere, right?
Yeah. So I ended up talking with a real estate agent that was inside of a real estate office, and they had a lender that was in there that was looking for a loan originator. Okay. And I'm like, well, what a great opportunity, to go work
like shooting fish in a barrel
inside of a real estate office and create those relationships there.
Sure.
Yeah, cool. So that was in 2006. What would you say, like, in the early days, what kind of volume, what kind of production were you doing? Like, you can give us maybe, if it's easier for you to give monthly.
Yeah, well, I would say probably, 5 to 7 closings a month.
Yeah, it's pretty strong. I mean, even today, that would be pretty strong.
Yeah, as an originator by myself, and our group with Laura Lynn merged up with, came on board with Tom, and he encouraged it. I remember we went to Bahama Breeze.
And we sat outside. It was 95 degrees outside.
Yeah. It was you, myself, Laura Lynn, Tom, Justin, and Brian. And he had said that he could see us with teams of 10. I'm like, Tom, let me
slow down.
Let me hire my first one first. Right? And now, prior to that, they had asked us to start a team, and I was like, nope, don't want any more responsibility. I just want it to be me. However, now.
Yeah, it's funny when you talk about it. Most of us that start out as loan officers and or realtors, it's scary. The first hire is the scariest hire.
Yeah, sure.
I mean, you just know you're responsible for yourself, and that's all you want. and you're doing enough loans to, to be successful, right?
Yes.
To provide for your family.
Yeah.
And then somebody comes along like Brian or Tom, Laura Lynn, and they push you in a direction that maybe it's a little bit uncomfortable. But my guess is that you're happy you did listen and follow that.
Oh my gosh, I never want to do it by myself ever again.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, to transfer over, like today, talk about 2020 compared to when you started doing that. What's your team look like today?
Well, if you want to go back, so I closed 78 loans in 2008 when I was by myself, and then brought on Elizabeth then the next year, and we went from closing 78 loans to 155.
Wow.
In 1 year, like
and
more
with
than
just
double.
one person.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I would go back and remember that conversation we had with Tom at Bahama Breeze. I think we all left there uncomfortable. And the vision that Tom had that none of us really caught on right away was that leverage piece. And we've talked about that on this podcast before. But you see right there, Shawn, by adding one person, nearly
Basically
doubled his business
Yeah.
in 1 year.
Yeah, and then we brought on Brittany the next year, and we closed over 200, and brought on Michael, and now we have 11 people on the team.
I believe
We
so.
have 2 transaction coordinators. I have like a ops manager that helps me out with managing the team. We have 5 loan originators, and then 6 including myself. So I'm still a producing branch manager.
Yeah. So let's get some clarity real quick. Your first hire was Elizabeth, and she still is awesome. What was her role though in the beginning?
Phew.
Because loan officers are going to watch this who are like, hey, I've been thinking about starting a team. I don't know what to like. What was the first step for you?
I mean, that's a while to go back, but helping answering phone calls,
Probably a little bit of everything.
Submitting files into processing, a lot that a transaction coordinator would do now.
Yeah.
She was hired as a loan originator assistant, but she was more like a transaction coordinator.
Mm-hmm.
So, then she, as adding Brittany on, who took over. Submitting the files, answering the calls that were coming in, putting marketing flyers together, training materials. Now we have a marketing department that we can get those things from.
Yeah.
We have a marketing assistant that helps out with handling our Facebooks, with sending out the weekly marketing pieces. We have so much leverage now corporately where now we can focus on just like originating.
Yeah.
So.
And I think that's really what Elizabeth did for you that first hire too, was, she did all of the other stuff. And at this point, early in the game, you were still doing all of the loans. She really didn't start doing loans too until you made the second hire.
Essentially, we just got so busy that we had to hire somebody. So,
Mm-hmm.
we just hired. I mean, that's pretty much what's happened every single hire.
Right.
We've just gotten so busy. That's not necessarily the right way to do it.
Correct.
It'd be better to have more people than what you need, and you can grow into it.
Right.
However, I haven't done it like that. I think I've only done it once where I hired 2 people at once. Brian, that you told me to hire 2 people at once, and I was like, I think I should just hire one. You said we're hiring 2, so I said, okay. We hired 2, and if we wouldn't have hired 2, we would have been in big trouble.
I don't even remember that.
Yeah. So, again, I remember when Tom set the vision, you could have 10 people on this team, and that was too big for me to think about.
Yeah.
Now I can kind of think about, hey, by the way, we could actually use some help now in this area, so we could actually hire a 12th. It still makes me a little nervous, though. Every time you're bringing on somebody,
Sure.
because you got to close. More loans.
Sure.
And you got people relying.
I mean, I get that. I've shared with this team before. In my role, I go to bed every night worrying about, hey, we gotta close enough loans as a company to employ a ton of people. And now that responsibility doesn't ultimately fall on me, but I feel like I have a responsibility in that.
Yeah.
Either way. I mean, I guess it does to some degree, but I get it, man. It's the pressure of, hey, you want to make sure that you've got these people on your team who you value and you care about, and you want to make sure you're helping them provide for their long-term futures as well.
Yeah, I watched a podcast. I'm not sure if it was John Maxwell or I watched a lot of podcasts and YouTube shows. They were talking about, don't be afraid to hire that person. Don't be afraid, well, you may have to let them go. If Tom would have been afraid of that, we wouldn't have all of this
You're
right now.
absolutely right. Yep.
If I wouldn't have slowly followed Tom's vision, of adding people, I wouldn't be where we're at now, and we wouldn't, we're closing 50 loans a month, probably, it's not, we might not average exactly 50 loans a month, but we're going to close
pretty
over
darn
500,
close. Yeah.
You know, between 500 and 550. And last year we closed 340. So, you know, that's a lot. And I couldn't obviously do that by myself.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, just to give you an idea, it's about 475 units through the end of November 2020 with volume of a team volume of 115 million. So you've done pretty well.
That's nuts. And this month we've got like 75 or 80 closings on the board. Now, we usually don't close all of those, but you know, so we're going to be well over 500 for the year. And
deals fall through, inspections, appraisals, different things like that.
Correct. Yes. Or they push out to the next month because, you know, it's a refinance where it doesn't take priority over a purchase.
Sure.
You know, one of the interesting things, and we talked just before we started this today, is that, you know, we've got a lot of LOs that are still very successful and they're still single LOs. Like, any advice to them taking that first step that you can give to help make that leap? I mean, we've got plenty that are doing 40, 50, 60 million as a single LO, and they're now starting to think, maybe I need to hire another LO and expand my team, out.
Well, you have the support systems here where they could do a trial run with the CSA, correct?
Yeah, yep, absolutely.
And, you know, before they actually hired their first TC.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
So I would say that'd be the first step. I mean, like, I don't even know what I'd do without a TC. I wouldn't want to do this again.
So from your perspective, Shawn, the first hire isn't necessarily a producing loan officer. The first hire is someone to help you with all of the minutia.
Correct. Yes. Yes. And then, you know, maybe your next hire then is going to be your producing loan officer.
Yeah. Yeah, I can see that. And you're referring to, we have a corporate sales assistant program where, like, if you're not ready to make that first hire, the company allows you to use it for, you know, there's a small cost involved, but it's not the cost of you making a hire for somebody. And that helps you start to grow your business to the next level. So like, you could essentially get someone that's a shared or a part-time assistant and then grow yourself into hiring your own full-time transaction coordinator, loan assistant, something like that.
Yeah, I mean, I think the important thing is that the scariest thing is making that first hire, or any hire in any business, is you're going up and you're imagining having to maybe drop a little bit or flatline a little bit until you go up again.
Correct.
So it's almost just a jagger, but you've steadily, I would imagine, income. You might have a little lag, and it jags back up, lag, back up.
John, you just made me think of something that I think is worth asking Shawn is, you know, in the beginning, when you added the first hire, did you work harder or less?
Well, every time we've ended up still getting busier, so I feel like I keep working harder.
Yeah.
You know, because we keep closing more loans.
Because I think one of the things I share with folks a lot of time when they're looking to grow their business,
he's working smarter,
you know, or make that hire
that too.
You know, a freed up time for you.
I'm able
the
to
business
get
just fall, but it freed up enough time that you paid a little bit more closer attention, maybe to some referral partners.
Correct.
And that you may have been neglecting.
Yeah, I'm able to get to more of the needle mover things. That you're talking about.
Yeah, I think, you know, one of the things I tell people all the time when they're making hires is that when you make that first hire, most times you often work harder than you normally would, because you've got to do all of the work that you are already doing, plus leading, developing, and training somebody new for a period of time. Now, once you get, you know, them full clarity on what their role is and they're trained up on how to do it, that's where the working smarter instead of harder comes in. But a lot of times that first hire you make, that's the most strenuous and difficult time that you have.
Yeah.
Because you've got to train this new person as well as continue to do all the things that you were already doing.
And there's so many different parts to the business where you can go get more business, you know, that you're not able to, you know, capitalize on without having the leverage.
Yeah.
So, you know, with, you know, Jason, with having him as the ops manager and helping me with doing the one-on-one coaching with the LOs, like, that's helped freed me up more to do, take more of the loan originators' calls on, hey, by the way, what do I do on this transaction? What do I do on that transaction? Where he's more so going over the numbers and you know, and what they're doing in their activity trackers. Are they, you know, making all their calls to their real estate agents, referral partners? So there's always other pieces of the business that you can go after. So that's really what I've seen happen. The more people we've hired, the more we'd be able to hit all the different areas.
Yeah. Shawn, what have you found have been some of your biggest challenges with the growth?
Finding the right people, that are going to grind as hard as you are, that are going to want it like you want it, that are going to do it like you do it, because you want, I have my systems in place, not saying I'm perfect, but a lot of us have self-trained ourselves.
Yes.
A lot of us haven't come from other companies where they've had, training, loan officer training for getting started. So we've just trained ourselves over the years. So, getting people that buy into the way you do things, your processes, after you do a pre-approval, call the realtor, go over, the gist of it with the realtor, put notes inside the file, what your conversations that you had with the client, with the buyer, were they pre-approved up to $300,000 or $400,000? Did they want their monthly payment at $2,000 a month, $3,000 a month? Did their dog just die? Did they just get married? Are they getting divorced? Is it contingent upon the sale of the house? Is it not? So getting them, because when you're doing massive business, you have to have a way to remember things.
Yeah. Well, I think it goes back to one of your original comments. When you said you wanted to get into the business, I'm just going to do the little things better. Those are all the little things.
Yeah.
That's a great piece of advice.
So, and envision, how important is it for your team to know the vision, where you're heading and what direction you're going in, each year with business planning, and where do you see yourself direction going? Okay,
well, that's an interesting question, because, some of the real estate, like Keller Williams, they're always about, make your goals really, really big. Well, I always like to make mine realistic.
Sure.
I would have never expected this year for us to close over 500 loans. I hate to admit this, but I don't know. I think I put 450 closings for our team for this year.
Sounds about right.
And we'll probably end up about 525. So we exceeded that. That's nice.
Overachiever, I like it.
Yeah. Well, we also didn't know COVID was going to hit this year, and the feds were going to start pumping in money to mortgage-backed securities and bring 30-year fixed rates under 3%, which is absolutely
insane,
crazy,
unheard of. So, and we don't know how long we're going to be able to ride that out. They're predicting rates to stay low over the next couple of years, but they may not be as low as they are right now. So
you got to make hay while there's hay to be made.
Correct.
Yeah, it's interesting. So you've done quite a few more refis in 2020 as a team, as an individual.
Yeah, my spiel when I'm calling a realtor, we're a purchase money lender prior to COVID.
Right.
We're a purchase money lender, and we do 95% purchases. And that's our priority.
And that was spot on in 2019. And I looked at your numbers just looking this year.
Yeah.
I mean, you're still primarily purchase. You're just over 70% purchase and 30% refi, that's a great mix.
And that's after giving my whole entire database of all my past clients to all my LOs to call. I didn't go after one of them.
Okay.
I didn't call one of them.
Okay.
I've only done refis for people calling in. So, and for friends, family.
Sure.
I've only
that's
done.
Smart. I mean,
and I've just leveraged that piece out.
Yeah.
I don't I know we have loan originators at our company where they're doing all the loans in their own name.
Mm-hmm.
That was one of the biggest things I did, I feel like, to get to the next step by allowing the loan originators to close loans in their own name and take the file from start to finish.
I think it'd be, if you're going to continue to do them all in your name, it becomes very difficult to continue to manage the pipeline.
It's nuts right now.
I think that the other thing is I remember just the calls that would come. I remember sitting in your office in times and your cell phone's ringing, your desk phone's ringing, all the communication is through and to Shawn. And when he finally made the decision of, hey, we've got to start to leverage out some of the production to the other loan officers on the team, that brought, him having to be so involved in every single file way down.
I think that was after I shattered my cell phone on my desk.
I wasn't going to tell that story, but you brought it up.
Yeah. With you sitting across my desk from me. Bryan was sitting there on the opposite side of my desk. He was in there for coaching that day, and I got off the phone with a borrower, and she was not very pleasant.
Okay.
We'll put it that way.
Okay.
And I grabbed my cell phone, and I shattered it on my desk like that. And Bryan just looked at me. He's like, You didn't even know what to say.
I didn't. It was like I was probably early on in our relationship too, so I didn't really know him.
I think it was like 11.
That's a good story.
11 years ago.
Yeah, and it's like he looks at the phone and he's just like, "Oh well,
okay, let's move
it's
on."
Completely broke. Now that night he did call me after he had gone to the cell phone store on his way home and be like, "Hey, I got a new phone."
Yeah,
it's like, well, good for you.
Yeah,
I think I still got that cell phone because my wife says it's the smallest iPhone.
Yeah, you got the smallest iPhone ever. Yeah. You're still rocking the iPhone 4.
Something like that.
That's awesome.
Another thing that helped out was on my email signature, putting an office line on there. So that goes to our administrative assistant, receptionist, and then she'll help decipher, the calls.
What calls you need to take.
What I need to take, what I don't need to take.
Yeah.
So, what can go to the processor, what can go to the transaction coordinator. Yeah. So on our email signatures for all the loan originators, prior to COVID, we just had the office line.
Yeah.
Now, since COVID, we have the office line, and we also have our cell phones because a lot of us are using our cell phones more than ever.
Yeah, I do remember that. You guys made an intentional effort to try to drive traffic through the receptionist so that receptionist could kind of be the gatekeeper, so to speak. It's probably not the best adjective, but that receptionist determines like, hey, does this call really need to go to the LO or can it go to a transaction coordinator? Can it go to a processor?
We put that on our weekly, like on our marketing pieces that go out, we just have the office line. Yeah. Like, so if they're calling.
And then, they all have their own individual lines as well. So like out of office, if it's the evening or the weekend, you just forward those to your cell phone so that you're still missing.
Yeah, how do you handle that?
Yes, yeah. So I whenever I leave at night, I have my office phone, my direct line forwarded to my cell phone.
Yep.
Okay.
And all the LOs do as well.
Yep, yeah. Yeah, and I think, when you instituted some of that stuff, it definitely helped with just the amount of phone calls and questions and everything that were coming in that don't necessarily need Shawn's attention to be answered.
Yeah.
Right? So we're talking about a ton of loans. John, you just said, and Shawn, you're going to close somewhere around 525 loans this year. We talked on a recent podcast, John, about the difference between working on your business and in your business. So, Shawn, my question to you is, with all of these files and all of this volume, how do you manage that kind of pipeline?
It's been really hard. Like, it's been really hectic this year. Like, you sent those business plans out, and I just wanted to say, like, I'll get to this when I'll get to this.
But
you're riding the wave.
He was the first one to send it in, though.
Well, and that was because Jason actually put the numbers on there for me.
Sure.
So I could just go in and just add in some of the other things. And we've had the business plans for however many years now. How long? And we've been utilizing the activity trackers. So we fill those out. Like they have all our activities on them. Listen, and you're saying we need to continue to revamp them every 90 days. I've been reacting this year. It's been very, very, I've closed myself 20 to 30 loans on
every
multiple months.
Yeah.
So my best hire now, my most recent best hire was bringing Marilyn on, who is like a true assistant for me, and she has access to my email, and she watched me, my tendencies, where I move things, what I did, so now she knows what to do,
to get rid of and move,
and what to leave for me. So that has been the best thing that I've done this year, and she came on board 2 or 3 months ago. I don't know what I would do if she wasn't working for me now, because we're still slammed.
Yeah. I think she's done a pretty great job. I remember originally you wanted to bring her on part-time, and I was like, why are we hiring somebody part-time? You really need full-time help, and eventually, that is what it morphed into. And she came full-time, and I one of the things I'll give her credit is and this just kind of goes to how do you make sure that you're finding the right people to fit the needs that you have, like for this specific role. She's searching for ways that she can take things off of Shawn's plate. So there's been times, and he's going to learn about this right now for the first time, but she'll reach out to me and ask, hey, how do I deal with Shawn on XYZ? Because I've worked with him a long time.
Yeah.
Right? And so she's trying to learn and adapt so that she can be the best resource available to him, and I think that's great.
That's awesome.
And like Gabriella, our administrative assistant, it's hard for me to even call her that because she does so much.
Everything. Yeah.
She's an absolute powerhouse. And her finding the right person to answer your phones, because they're taking a lot of feedback heat from agents, buyers calling in, and trying to be the gatekeeper. Finding that right person that can handle that in the right way is super important as well too.
Yeah, and I think the cool thing about her too is, she gets it on all levels. Like, I mean, she's gone to events that the team has held to go and meet the agents and to network, and she's not doing any loans or building any relationships to bring. Well, I shouldn't say that because she
builds relationships with agents.
But she, that's not necessarily her full-time role, but she's engaged with the team in that way too. So it's like everybody kind of all in. Shawn, I'm just curious, like through all of this over the years, has there been any difficult lessons that you've learned?
Like losing a couple of the loan originators, those were harder to take. I didn't necessarily plan on that necessarily to happen. You also don't want to ever hold anybody back though either.
Right.
If they want to go do this on their own.
Yeah.
And being in an office, like being around other team members, it is definitely a different animal than sitting in the house by yourself. You get a lot of the team dynamics. You get gossiping going back and forth.
Yeah.
You see people on their bad days, see people on the good days, just like around your house. Your spouse maybe not always be in the best mood. You may butt heads sometimes. You may yell sometimes. It was the same as in the office.
Yeah.
So those have been my I guess learning experiences. Losing them. But again, I don't know if you call it losing.
Yeah, I mean, I think in any business, when you take somebody brand new into the business and you train, develop them, and bring them up to that level where they're really thriving and doing awesome, sometimes those people want the opportunity to go out on their own and do what you've done, right, and build their own team, and maybe they think, that's the vision. And for you as a leader, that's truly amazing. I mean, I think if you look back last year when that happened, you were a bit upset. And then you've had the best year you've ever had.
Correct.
And you've replaced them, and then you've kind of just moved on. And
and you say replace them, but you still miss them.
Sure. They're part of your family.
Yeah, and especially now this year. I mean, a lot of people have been working from home. Now in my office, they have slowly trickled back in. The administrative TCs, they're all in there. Jason's in there. LOs are coming in. Here and there, but not all of them can. Some of them are single mom, their kids aren't in school yet, so, I've been trying to, adapt more, and go with the flow
Get accustomed
a little bit.
To this change.
Go with the flow a little bit more, because, prior to COVID, people, not coming into the office, that would drive me absolutely crazy.
Right.
Now I still prefer for them to be in the office. However, it's a different
Everybody's
environment.
situation is different.
Yeah, you got to be flexible.
So, Shawn, you brought up business planning earlier in our conversation. Whether it's short term or long term, how important would you say that that's been to your business?
I mean, me personally, it's just about getting into habits. So I've been doing the activity trackers for so long. Honestly, that has been a huge way for me to be able to help manage and lead my LOs. Where when we're doing our one-on-one coaching, what are they doing, to help,
are they
increase
meeting,
their business.
Are they doing what they said and committed to doing?
Correct.
Right, every week.
Yeah. Now, that doesn't flow off my tongue as well now because Jason has taken over doing the one-on-one coaching with the LOs. In a perfect world, if I wasn't as slammed as I am right now, I'd like to be on those one-on-one coaching calls with him, or at least every month, or at least every other month. So that's going to be my goal for next year, to be on him every other month, so then I can be talking sales strategies. Jason's, an Excel guru. Kid's an absolute stud. But he's never been a loan originator.
Sure.
So he doesn't know.
He's not in the trenches.
Doesn't know the sales side of things. So that's my goal for next year, to be able to be more involved with that. But I take a lot of the loan originators' calls on their transactions too. So business planning has got us to where we are right now. I'm going to be honest, I don't love it. I don't love when you say, hey, it's business planning time of year. I'm like, oh yeah, let's get all excited. But you forced us pretty much to do it. And now it's a lot easier every year. It's not like you're doing something, completely brand new.
Yeah.
Even though probably this year I should be doing something completely brand new. So I'm going to do my best to get there and revamp the activity tracker. It's just like now it's like, as a branch manager, do I do the activity tracker for like things that Marilyn now is doing for me? Like she does all our like hot pre-qual follow-ups where she'll follow up, hey, by the way, how's the home search going? Well, that was on my activity tracker.
Yeah, I think you put that on hers.
Correct. But then, what do I replace that with? Do I need to have all those different things on my activity tracker? Maybe not.
I agree with you. So like, our audience who's watching or listening, they're not necessarily familiar with the activity tracker, but to give some clarity to it, it's a tracker that, it's got space to put about 15 activities. If you go back and look at our podcast that we did recently on business planning, we talked about for everything that we measure, there are behaviors and activities that drive those metrics. And so those activities and behaviors are what Shawn's been putting on that activity tracker, so that he can measure, hey, does that give me a good ROI or does it not? But I think one of the common mistakes, and this is what you're trying to say, is just because there's 15 boxes, we don't have to fill out all 15.
Yeah.
We need to make sure that we're hitting the critical ones.
Right, the 3 to 5 key activities.
Some key activities. But I think there's other things like, and I don't know whether you have this on your activity tracker or not, but you do a weekly team meeting.
Correct, and it is.
That's something that happens every single week.
Yeah.
But a lot of times that's a discipline that maybe people don't necessarily put on their activity tracker because in their mind they're like, well, we do that every week.
Yeah, I had to like go to 2 closings a month.
Yeah.
Where for a new loan originator, you should be going to all your closings.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And going back to the importance of tracking it and having Shawn or Jason have the weekly calls with the LOs or the monthly calls, the coaching calls, is to measure and make sure they're hitting and achieving what they're doing. It's like Weight Watchers. We talk about a diet,
we talk about that, yeah.
And if you have to weigh in every Wednesday, you have to diet or you're gonna fail, right?
Yeah.
I mean, you can't show up on Monday and having done nothing the previous week and nothing to show for it.
I mean,
right? If you want to be successful in this business.
That also has our pre-quals on there for the week. It has our goals on there. It has our closings on there for the week, and then they tally up for the month, for the year.
One-on-ones, right? The marketing they're going to do.
So they're tracking every single week. Are they hitting their pre-approval goals? How are they doing towards their monthly goals? Again, we talked about that. If you haven't watched our episode on business planning, Shawn's hitting on a lot of those things that we talked about on that episode of business planning. Shawn, we're on a little bit of time, but I got to ask you one more question if I can. Is what is the biggest way that you have personally grown since you've been on this journey?
It's been really neat to see my loan originators hitting income goals that they never thought they would necessarily hit. So that's a
big high five.
I would say that's probably been the most rewarding when you see them, reaching their goals or personal goals. But I personally just see like their production goals, and that's been awesome to see people that had never done this before now being successful in this business.
Cool.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Well, Shawn, is there anything that you wished that John and I would have asked you?
Nah, not really. Yeah, no, you made me think pretty hard.
He has 15 calls to return.
You caught me off guard with that last question. That was a good one. So, all right. Yeah.
All right, cool. Well, listen, thanks for chiming in with us again on our Contacts to Contracts podcast on behalf of John Jones and myself. If you like what you see, take the opportunity to subscribe with us either on Spotify or YouTube. Feel free to share this on your social media.
And Bryan and John just let me know. So on YouTube, you can go ahead and put in the Contacts to Contracts on here, and then you can actually click on one of the episodes and you can subscribe. So then it's nice and easy while you're at the gym to go ahead and go into your subscriptions here, and they'll come up along the top. So then it's nice and easy to find.
That way you never miss an episode.
Yeah, he just reminded both of us that we need to get to the gym.
Yes.
Yeah. Because
thanks, Shawn.
I'd keep the email on my inbox to get buried. So this is an easy way to find it and listen to it all the time.
Right. And as always, John and I want you to know if there's anything that we can do to help you in your business, we're here to serve.